Welcome to Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. I'm Lori Faulk, and together with my three powerhouse co-hosts and a slew of thought leaders and luminaries, we're bringing you a scintillating talk show style podcast that will disrupt the worlds of wealth and wellness as we know them today. We invite you to go on this journey with us as we offer you a paradigm shift that empowers you to change your approach to these key areas of your life. Join us and discover the truth that the future of wealth and wellness begins with you.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. As you will see, there is just three of us this week. It's the summer months and there's a lot of life going on right now. So Susan is off doing something else. So it's just the three of us here today. And we thought it would be a good idea just to do a general check-in with each other, because as girlfriends, do we do that often enough? Do we check in with each other? Or do we have a tendency, because I know this is my tendency, to just get on with life and to not necessarily share exactly what's going on in the moment because I just get on with it? And that's not always a healthy way to be. I think it's always a good idea to take some time just to be, just to check in with each other. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to invite you, our listeners, to do the same as well, to check in with yourself, to take that opportunity to check in with yourself, but to also to check in with your girlfriends, because we all know that oxytocin flows much more freely when we are in that mode of enjoying emotion and giving emotion. And today we're going to have a virtual hug with each other to get our oxytocin levels really, really ramped up. So, Jenny, Lori, I'm going to ask you the question. How are you doing, my friends?
You know, this is so topical and so interesting because having just gone through a major move, and when I say major, because I work out of my home, I'm not just moving myself and my household, I'm also moving my business. And as an artist, I'm wondering why I wasn't a jewelry designer, to be honest with you, because there's so much. I mean, the art boxes alone are humongous. You got a 30 by 40 piece of art, and it's got to be in its own box. Anyway, it's an enormous task. And what was really, really, really interesting to me was who checked in and who didn't. And, there are people who still haven't asked me, how did the move go? And it was just really interesting. And I also noticed how sad it made me that some of my closer friends weren't checking in, weren't asking. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm moving down the street. I was moving 100 miles from where I was. It was huge. Anyway, I, on the other hand, made a point during that time to reach out to Susan, because I knew she would be moving the next week. I made a point to reach out to Jenny because I knew she was going through some mediation, and so I'm really, it taught me, because of how it felt to not have the check-ins received. It taught me the importance of really checking in with other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's amped up my intuition. You guys aren't going to believe this one. Last week, I kept getting that I needed to go to the Metro Market to get ink for my printer. I mean, I didn't think they'd have ink there. So I go to the section of the store that actually had stationery and office supplies, school supplies, whatever. I didn't really think there would be ink there, but I'm just okay, I got this hit to be here. All of a sudden, I turn around and I see greeting cards in the same aisle. And I went, oh, that's right. I need to get a sympathy card for Mary. And I'm like, I thought for a minute and I'm like, oh, oh, that's right. My friend Mary's horse died a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't gotten her a card yet. And, our pets are so important to us, especially those of us who don't have children. And a horse you have with you for like 40 years. That's an enormous relationship. Well, okay, so that is a very valid point, and I bought the card because it made a lot of sense logically until the next morning. I got a text from my other friend Mary at 9:30 a.m. that her mom had passed away in the afternoon the day before.
Good God.
And that is the Mary that I'm the super, super closest to. She's like my ICE. She's my, medical power of attorney. So I know that spirit, if you will, was checking in with me to let me know that I needed to check in with her. So when you focus, I mean, Joe Dispenza always says, what you focus on is what you're going to attract more of. So I've been focusing on the importance of these check-ins, and wow, I even had guidance from spirit. So
That's unbelievable. I'm going to come back to what you said shortly because it's been really, really important you said there. And I won't lose it, but I want to check in with Jen first of all. How are you doing?
Oh, life is lifing. It's doing all of the hard lifing things. And I can, 100% without a doubt, honestly say that if it weren't for the amazing community of women that I have in my life, it would be pretty difficult. And I've thought to myself at times, oh, this is that pivotal moment. You come to that kind of crossroads where you either become, an alcoholic bag lady that ends up living on the street, or you feel very supported and you just one foot in front of the other and keep going. I've come to those quite a lot, those little, you know, marks in the road where it's like, oh, I'm ready to just give up. But then I have a girlfriend, one or two, that'll check in, or I'm pretty good now about reaching out when I need to reach out, but a lot of us aren't. And I think that it's not just something that we need, on like for connection and emotions and that kind of thing, but it's, there is this radical healing that happens when we are with women, like you mentioned, the oxytocin and all of these amazing benefits. So for me, it's really about, and I think what this episode kind of carries for me is that you don't have to carry it alone. And we have an unshakable sisterhood that has this, deep sense of trust and gratitude and community. And I think that we are just so strong as women, but we can forget that behind the strength, there can be some real emotional stuff happening. So even though, and social media is not easy, I think, for that, because people look well on the surface. I mean, social media is very fake, as we know. So I think it's really important to understand that even those, if you see someone who is very successful, struggle happens behind the scenes with that. It's not, even success and looking like you've got it all together does not come easily. So,
Yeah.
I think the more you see someone who is looking so fantastic and their life is 100% put together on screen, that's probably the someone that you need to check in with, right? Because they're probably
Absolutely.
going through a lot.
And how do you start, do you think, if there is, a woman listening in right now, recognizing that she is, a swan on the surface and her legs are going like heck, underneath the water, but has built up that persona of being able to serenely manage it all. How does she go about saying, I need some support, I need some help right now?
Well, I think, if anyone is listening, right, everything starts within. If you don't have someone actively checking in on you, I think, starting with yourself with some positive affirmations and setting that intention, because as Lori mentioned, things that we focus on is what we attract. So if you're focusing on maybe giving yourself some positive reinforcement, even if you're faking it till you make it, that is a thing, to trick your brain into believing certain things, right?
Yeah.
Holding intentions. So maybe saying to yourself, I am held, I am loved, I am enough, things like this, then you'd be surprised at intuitively what that's going to be attracting into your world. Because I think, and if you are strong enough to have that kind of reach out, a check-in circle, maybe you
Yeah.
do have a best friend, create like a little circle, kind of how we have when we get together once a week, even though we are recording, this is a check-in circle for us. It's
Yeah.
something we come together and we chat beforehand and we find out how everyone's doing. I think just simple little things like that, it can be very powerful.
I agree. No, I agree. Going to come back to what I was going to ask you about, Laurie. And it wasn't actually an ask per se, it was a confession to a certain extent. So when you said you hadn't moved just down the road, you'd moved 100 miles away, I had no idea. I thought you'd moved literally down the road. So does that mean maybe your direct circle aren't aware that you've maybe moved 100 miles in the UK is a pretty big deal. I know in America, it's possibly not quite such a big deal because America is a much, much bigger country. But did you tell people, or do
Yes.
we assume very often as women that people just know that these things are going on in our lives and we're not specific enough?
I was telling people. So,
Right.
And people from where I moved from and where I was moving to, and family and friends. And so it was just interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
was interesting to me. Some of it I don't want to publicly share, as you can
Absolutely. No, no, no,
probably
no, no.
tell.
I was just though kind of, recognizing the fact that I didn't know you'd moved. I had, for the conversations we'd had, and maybe just my assumption that you kind of looked in the local paper, found a place that you wanted to move to, and it was just in your locality. So I apologize for not paying more attention to.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I lived in the middle of the state, in the state capital, and I had lived there for about 9 years, and it just didn't, I never really clicked. It seemed like if you lived there your whole life, you had a lot of friends. It seemed like if you were coming into the area new, not so much, because it was more small townish than the area that I'm in now. This is a suburb where I am now of Milwaukee. So it's much more sophisticated cosmopolitan area. But in Madison, it's more people grew up there, they went to school there, they got married there, they had kids there, they have grandkids there, they're busy. You see them once a year. And then they go, oh my God, I can't believe you're moving. I'm going to miss you so much. And you go, once a year, you could drive an hour to come and visit me. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to Mars. I'm not even going to Florida. I'm just going down the road an hour or so. Um, so, and we'll see how the move goes. I would have preferred to move to Florida down by Jenny and Susan. That was my original plan, but it just wasn't the right time to make that move. So, yeah, so now my plan is to perhaps spend 6 months of the year down in Southeast Florida. And also, when I made this move, one thing that a lot of people probably didn't know, and a lot of people also had difficulty understanding, was that I chose to get a roommate,
I
which is
didn't know that either.
right. And that is a little bit unusual, but not, because not only did I choose to get a roommate, but I had 5 people ask me to move in with them and to get a place with them, because I think we have a new emerging loneliness factor amongst single people. And I think those of us who were single during COVID in particular, the thought of ever going through anything like that alone again is mortifying. And I just frankly got tired. Even though I I'm an artist, so I love decorating my home. I take pride in my home. I mean, my home is a representation of me. So there were a lot of factors that went into it. But overruling, I was missing that oxytocin on a daily basis. Someone coming home after work and saying, "What should we have for dinner?" I mean, just those little things. I got tired of eating dinner alone. I when I went through COVID alone, I had Gabby, which is fabulous. But like, I kept thinking, what if I get sick and I'm alone and I can't take care of her? And there's just so many things that, if you're married, if you're in a relationship, and even if you have kids of your own, you're not as lonely and not thinking about it as much.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal to me. And my friend Debbie, who I've moved in with, everybody's asking her too, like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And we both have said over the last several weeks, we're so grateful we're not alone dealing with this mess that we walked into.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, a lot of people say that, as you get older, it's harder to make friendships. I don't know if I have found that to be true. I have to be honest with you, but I think that's thanks to COVID. But do you think it is harder to make significant friendships as you get older?
Um, I think you're competing with grandchildren for the
Good
most part.
point. Yeah, good point.
That's a tough one, because
Yeah,
grandchildren are always going to trump the girlfriend
yeah,
relationships. And so from that perspective, maybe, but it's just like, think about when you left high school and went to college. I mean, it was easier in high school. It was a smaller group of people. In college, it was bigger, it was more spread out. Then you get out of college and you're in the workforce and you're meeting only a handful of people. So I think it's just different stages, different nuances.
yeah. And with everything you're going through, Jen, have you found your friendship circles have changed? They've improved? They've gone the other way? What are you feeling at the moment?
I think with every big change, that's pretty natural.
Yeah,
That, your circles kind of shift and change, and not drastically, but sometimes you'll find someone that you weren't as close with that you get a little bit closer with. I have, a best friend of mine that we weren't so close for quite a while, and then because of what I was going through, she was the first one to reach out and be like, "Hey, I'm here for you. I want to support you and the kids," and so it's brought us even closer together. And then, yeah, I've definitely, especially, I mean, when you're going through a divorce, there are people that judge and choose sides, and it's not always your side.
yeah,
And so you kind of come to the realization, like, oh, you're not everyone's first choice, and that is sometimes a hard pill to swallow. But it also, for me anyway, because I know I know myself and I know the path that I'm on, and I trust in the universe that's, guiding me in the direction that I need to be on. So that really helps me to kind of lean in to what I'm feeling is a strong relationship. So I think it's really important to recognize who does keep showing up, who is,
yeah,
it's, actions speak louder than words, so it's quite a big deal.
yeah.
I also wanted to turn it back on you, Lesley, and I know you've had a lot going on. I mean, you are just blossoming and kicking ass in your work
Mhm.
world, in your business, and you're thriving so much. And yet you also have so much going on at home with a son graduating and
Mm.
moving on. I mean, that is a big deal in itself. So I wanted to check in with you and see what's going on with you, Lesley. Tell us all the things.
You know, this whole, thank you, by the way, for asking that. I appreciate it. But this whole empty nest syndrome thing, oh my God, don't think I expected it to have such a dramatic effect on me. And being a mum being such a significant part of my self identity.
Mm,
And while Sam doesn't graduate until next summer, and it's slightly different in the UK. He's finishing high school, I suppose you would call it. He's going to be 18, doing his A levels, then going to university. So it's not graduating as we know it in the UK. It is still a point at which he is likely to be leaving home.
mm,
My 19-year-old is likely to be leaving home this autumn. So I am doing everything I can to put myself in a position where my husband and I are not going to be so busy we're kind of papering over the hole that will be left by our two boys. But at the same time, if I talk about it for too long now, I'll cry because it feels really sad. And that's the only way I could put it. It feels really sad that that part of my life is coming to an end. And as my husband will say, but yes, Lesley, you know, it's going to change, but it's going to change in a good way. And I do, I do believe that. But at the same time, I have a friend who is a grief coach, and she's a grief coach in terms of lots of different aspects of change. And I do believe I'm going through a period of mourning at the moment for the life I currently have, but that's going to change in 12 months' time. It's going to change significantly. So, as you
oh,
say, a lot of life lifing.
you're making me very emotional. I can't even imagine what that's going to.
No,
I have a long
and
way to go, I feel, but it's going to
yes,
happen so fast, you know? You just never
and that is
realize.
it, that, and I almost see myself, I've got friends of different stages of, how old their children are. Some have left home already and are parents, so some friends are grandparents, and I have other friends whose children are very, very young, and they're relishing those moments when they're not with the children. I'm saying, no, no, don't relish those moments, because time, honestly, my children are now 19 and 16. I'm kind of like, the last 10 years, where did they go then? Stole those from me, because I don't really remember those last 10 years, because they do go like that. And I think it is. And it is, I think, so important that we do check in with each other, because we're all, you're going, you've just gone through a move, Laurie, you're 100 miles away. You're going through a divorce, having moved house, Jen. I'm going through the approach to, empty nest syndrome. Susan's moved house as well. And I cannot imagine the four of us are significantly different to what lots of our listeners are going through in terms of change. But the most important thing to do is to check in and to be honest with regards to how you're feeling, how you're snow globing, because that's how I feel I am at the moment. Someone's shaken my snow globe, and that snow is there, doesn't quite know what to do with itself. and how and where to land. So it's an interesting time.
Mhm.
An interesting
And
time.
on top of all of that, we're going through some significant changes in the world,
Yeah.
and especially in the health arena. And it's important to check in and see how people are. We all understand the importance of holistic health, and we live in a world that the average person doesn't live in.
Yeah.
But this is shaking a lot of people up when they're starting, some of the information that's starting to be revealed and starting to come out. And it's, I think, important to check in with people to see how they're doing around all that.
I agree. I listened to a podcast yesterday, and there was an American professor on the it was a British podcast, but there was an American professor on there, and he was talking about how the food industry was potentially the next industry responsible for creating sickness, in people. And he asked a question that really shocked me. I'll ask you, see if you get close to his answer. He said, how many, percentage-wise, how many people in America are metabolically healthy? What do you think his answer was?
Oh, 20%?
Lower.
Lower? Oh my
Lower.
goodness.
8%.
Wow.
8%. And he put a lot of that down to, he didn't call it ultra processed foods. I'll look up the proper description he used for it. But basically, he said it was the amount of sugar, fat, and salt that was put to make food addictive, basically. That your body craves it, and therefore you go and consume it, basically. But 8%, and again, he's brought a book out about it, and I can't remember the name of the book, unfortunately. But it does go to show what you were saying there, Lori, in terms of if what is going on in terms of our health. We are all having shocks to the system. We know eating too much is not good for you, but most of us didn't think it's not how much you eat, it's actually what you are eating is the big problem.
Right.
And I was,
It's
Yeah.
huge. And
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest issues that we have in the United States is that we're still using things like glyphosate and Roundup and things like that. And so we know it's important to eat your vegetables, but those vegetables aren't even all healthy. And then they have this coating called a peel that they've put on a lot of them to extend the shelf life on them. And that's toxic. And so I'm not surprised that it's 8% because people aren't even aware of it. You in Europe, you guys have such more stringent rules about these things. My niece went to Germany and she brought this product back, and I want to even say maybe it was a candy, but she brought it back and she had the bag from Germany, and then she bought a bag of the same product locally and was comparing the ingredients. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 ingredients in the one from Germany, and there were about 20 in the one from the US. The color of the product in the one from Germany was bright and brilliant, and the one from the US just looked like, and they were doing even taste tests, the family was, and it was just really interesting. See, we don't have those regulations, and they're coming, thank God. So even when you're out there, to your point, even when you're out there eating, protein and vegetables and staying away from grains, I mean, it doesn't even, staying away from sugar, staying away from fat, it's not even that simple.
Yeah.
It's finding the quality food.
So I think, like I said before, it definitely starts within, and our intentions of how we can show up for ourselves and kind of get into these circles of women to kind of form this little safe space for our emotions, right? But like this conversation and where we've kind of gone, this can be so stressful for people to think about, what do I do? I can't even drink the water. I can't even eat the vegetables because it's all unsafe. Over here in the States, we've got all of this information now being bombarded into our system. And so I just want to stress the importance of the stress that can cause, and to, allow us to maybe shift our bodies a little bit and get out if you can. And we're kind of getting down here into the rainy season, but things like being outdoors and walking, something that kind of helps to shift the body out of that sympathetic or fight or flight mode into the rest and digest or parasympathetic mode, right? Walking is so underrated, and just doing something that has that kind of gentle rhythm really helps to calm the stress hormones like cortisol, and it helps to reduce anxiety and tension, right? So, any kind of movement, even if you're sitting and you can, maybe not meditation, not everyone understands what meditation is or how to get into that space, but thinking about your breathing and regulate your breathing, because there is something to be said for that rhythmic breathing, right? To regulate the vagus nerve. So there's all these things that we can do, besides getting so stressed out with all of this information that's like, what the hell do we eat and drink now, right? To help rewire your brain for calm. Because I do feel like we go to bed really stressed out, and that is the norm. When we go in and we're taking these tests, right? The doctors are giving us all of these tests for our hormones, for blood, for, cholesterol, all of these things that we talk a lot about on this podcast. And the tests come back normal, but it's not normal, because we have this bell curve that these tests are. It's normal for these people who are sick and in this stress state, right? So we actually are not really normal. We're not balanced at all. We're just not so high off the charts, right?
The crisis scale, exactly.
Exactly. So there's this kind of, we have this really situation where we've just, burnout is natural. Living in this life of stress and cortisol is natural. Going to bed, laying down in bed, being on our phone, scrolling until we literally pass out is a normal thing now. And so, there's a lot to be said for looking at your own little tiny activities that you could maybe tweak and change, and not staring at your phone while you're going to bed, stuff like this that can reduce that cortisol within.
And I think as well, it's almost the antidote, coming back to what we were saying with regards to girlfriends, etc., is almost, what can I do to get myself out of this negative spiral because of what's in the media and what I'm seeing on social media and what people are saying to me, by literally getting together, going out for a walk together, arranging a get together, and actually asking each other, what can I do to increase my mood, to improve my health, to get fitter? All those kinds of positive conversations. I know I make a real effort to stay away from what I call Debbie Downers. So anybody that wants to, spiral me down, I will give them a wide berth. Exactly. And I think that is the thing, isn't it? Is being aware of your natural state. Are you naturally somebody who's bringing somebody down, or are you naturally somebody who wants to increase the energy, increase the vibe, because you are a radiator, you help people to feel better? And I think, just as we in our business, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend most of your time with, that has to also apply privately. and ensuring that your social circle is one that fills your cup, as opposed to somebody who is taking that energy away and leaving you feeling depleted.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We all need to process it, and we need to share what's going on. And it's not good to bottle up those feelings. And, I usually give someone 5 or 10 minutes to really, just dump it all and share it. And I'll be listening compassionately, and I'll be empathetic, and I'll give a hug or whatever it is that's needed. And then I ask them, so tell me what's working.
Good
Or
question.
tell me something you're happy about. Because those are simple questions, but they're not thinking about it in amongst all the cortisol cesspool of emotions that they're in, right? And so
Yeah.
you're offering them just a different perspective. Tell me what's working, because something's always working. Something's always working. If
Tap and
everything is
interrupt.
happy going on around you, I'll tell you what's working. If you've got a pet and that little pet comes over and gives you a big kiss and just gets in your face, that's working. That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. That's still a gift from God, even amongst all the other shit that's going on. So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So before we close, is there anything that you, Jen, or you, Laurie, want to add in terms of, where we started, checking in with our friends, making sure that people have that space to do as you said, Laurie, to do the blur, but to come up with a plan that then helps them to move forward?
the one thing I would add to all of this, because as a coach, I'm constantly dealing with this, right? Because as a coach, I get paid to really listen to that kind of stuff, right? That's just part of the deal, and that's fine. But stay off of social media. If you're having a bad day, shut Facebook off. Stay off of Instagram. Just don't do it, because it's what we were saying earlier. Nobody posts when they're having a bad day.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. And so we want to just stay away from it, because then you're going to get into the comparison. Oh, so and so just went on vacation. I haven't been on vacation in 20 years. Oh, this, oh, that. And it's just going to take you right down that spiral into the proverbial toilet. So shut it off. That's my best advice.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. And what about you, Jen?
I would say, um, checking in with girlfriends that can hold that space for you, yes. Going on a walk, getting in nature, yes. But also, look for something that might really bring you joy, something that might be a positive light. I listen to Audible a lot, so I'm, listening to other podcasts like ours, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Right now, I am listening to Abundant Ever After by Kathy Heller, who we are going to have on an upcoming episode, and I'm very excited. And listening to that, just it really lights me up, and it gives me hope, and it kind of shifts my mindset. So I think that that's something that's really important to do, is to something that's so drastic that can shift that mindset really quickly, can change your whole day, right? So, pick out a book that you love. What about you, Lesley? What do you like as you wrap up?
Yeah, I think for me, it's having a hug. I think it is really appreciating, everything that I do have, rather than worrying about changes that are going to happen. I'm very lucky that in my garden right now we have a beautiful blackbird, and he sings for us every morning. And he's you probably can't hear it right now. He's singing for me right now, and I think I just try and tune in to the joy that is nature. Basically, wouldn't have caught me saying that a few years ago, But now I absolutely appreciate the seasons. I appreciate everything that there is to appreciate, because we're fortunate. There is a lot to appreciate. So I try and hang on to that and not allow myself to go too far down thinking of my empty nest, because really it's what my children want. And therefore, I have to be proud and happy that I have given them roots and wings. So, on that hopefully happier note, thank you very much, everybody who has tuned in. We appreciate every single one of our listeners. Please do try and find our Facebook, join our community. There's going to be lots going on in that community once things settle down and life stops lifing quite as much as it is. There's lots of back episodes to listen to if you haven't joined us since the first episode back in December. And we look forward to catching up with you again next week on Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed. Until then, take care.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Women's Wealth and Wellness Unleashed, where we empower women to take control of the two most important areas of their life, their health and their wealth. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another amazing woman who's ready to elevate her wealth and wellness journey. Stay connected with us by heading to our website and joining our Facebook community. All the details can be found in the show notes. Until next time, keep thriving and unleashing your highest potential.